Hello friends, welcome. Friends, in the morning I saw this article where Vodafone Idea is thinking of a large-scale deployment on Open RAN. So they are doing currently a pilot, and they probably will be going for a large-scale deployment on Open RAN. So this article I saw. Some of my colleagues who are watching me on video, they requested me that I do a deep dive in YouTube video to explain what this is all about, whether Vodafone Idea is going to have any advantage or what kind of challenges that they are going to encounter while they go ahead with their Open RAN deployment. Now friends, fortunately, I actually had written an article around on 9th of September 2023. I know how many articles I have written, I myself forget sometimes. So I did some digging and I figured out that I had already written an article. So that gave me an opportunity to quickly record this video, because the diagrams which are required to be prepared in order to explain this concept is already there in this article. So that is the fortunate part. So let me blow this diagram in front of you so that you can understand what this Open RAN is all about. And then only you will be able to understand whether Vodafone Idea is going to have any advantage and what kind of challenges that they are going to face. So it's very important to understand the concept. Now, in order to understand this concept, what I have done is that I have drawn 3 different diagrams. They are all kept side by side. So the diagram which you see on the leftmost side of your screen is the legacy physical RAN deployment diagram. Then on the middle, we have a semi-open RAN diagram, and then finally the full-fledged Open RAN diagram. Now friend, I am quickly going to explain to you what the differences are from the various deployment strategy. Now if you look at the physical RAN deployment diagram, you will notice that you have a core which is located in the cloud in a centralized location. And then you have the base station unit, which is broken down into 2 different compartments. One is the baseband unit, another is the radio unit. Now, what are these units doing? What are the functionality of these units? Let's understand. Now, the radio unit and the baseband unit are located inside the base station in a physical RAN, which is a legacy physical RAN. Now, the radio unit is doing what? It is converting a electrical signal into RF signal, and then through the antenna throwing that signal to the mobile handset, and then it is receiving on the reverse direction the RF signals which are emanating from the mobile terminals, and then converting those signals into electronic signals which are processed by the baseband unit and then made palatable for transmission into the centralized unit, which is the V core, which is located at a centralized location using a backhaul network. Now friends, what is the need for a centralized unit? Because you have understood that you have a baseband unit and a radio unit, that you have understood. The centralized unit purpose is to do the processing and to figure out where the call originated and where the destination of the call is. It's almost like a router which kind of understands and it looks at the IP address, like conventional IP packets. The router looks at the IP address and determines where the destination of the IP address is, and then the packet is thrown at that location. Similarly, the central location is going to understand where the packets are or where the call is destined to be, and then after processing it will throw that call to a different backhaul network, and there will be a different base station where it is again going to be thrown back into the BBO unit, which will again convert it into a signal which will be read by the RE unit, and then the same process will be repeated, right? Simple. Now the difference here is from these networks which I am going to explain to you is that this network, this particular link that you see from radio unit to baseband unit, from baseband unit to the core unit, they are all proprietary, which means once a particular equipment, a portion of an equipment is purchased from a particular vendor, then you have no other recourse but to look for the same vendor to replace that particular equipment. For example, you purchase that from any vendor. Now you cannot say that I am going to purchase the RU if it goes defective and you need the spares from a different vendor. You cannot do that. You have to purchase the same RU from the same vendor which you have purchased. None of the equipment in the network is replaceable from a different vendor. So that is the problem with the physical RAN, right? Which is a legacy physical RAN. And that is why once a particular network is deployed through a vendor, then the same vendor is going to be perpetually there to support you till the time the network is uprooted and the new network is deployed. Okay. Now let's come to the semi-open vRAN architecture. Now in case of the semi-open vRAN architecture, what has happened is that the base station unit is segmented into two different compartments. One is called the radio unit, and the BBU is now taken out and put in a distributed unit. Because if you are going to put BBU in each and every base station and they are going to do the same thing, it is better to extrapolate and put in a central location which can serve multiple base stations. Like you have got multiple base stations in your network. So what you do is that you take that same BBU out in a distributed unit and look at the distributed unit in a centralized location or somewhere in the middle of the location, which is not at the core, but it is like a cluster. It will serve a cluster of base station. In that way, what you do? You minimize and optimize on the equipment cost, you minimize on processing, and you minimize on backhaul cost. So the base station will become thinner now. It will only have the RE unit. It will not have the BBU. And the BBUs located at the central location will be serving multiple base stations. So this architecture is more scalable. It is much more affordable, costly, and the power consumption is also less. Now the difference here is that the BBU, that is the distributed unit, which is nothing but the extrapolation of the BBU, which you see here, is going to be served to the RU by a proprietary interface. Means this interface which you see between the RU and the BBU, my mouse pointer which you see here, this is a proprietary interface, and you will have to follow the same procedure. If anything goes faulty, you have to purchase from the same vendor. However, between the DU and the cloud, which is the central process unit, the interface can become open. Now, what is the advantage of an open interface? The advantage of open interface is that you can purchase a server from a third party, and that third party server can interwork with the DU because the interface will be able to support that interworking. So that serves two purposes. One is that it ensures that you can purchase these servers which are from off the shelf. You don't have to lock into a particular vendor. Okay. You can purchase from anybody you want. Only thing that is you are going to have inflexibility is from the DU to RU, which is a proprietary interface, which is a front hall here, which you can see. So that gives some kind of scalability and a flexibility to the operator. He can purchase from anywhere. He can purchase server from off the shelf, which will be cheaper and easy to support, maintain, and those are going to be located in the cloud. But this is going to become little more flexible, a little more optimized from a power consumption point of view and the equipment cost point of view. But still you will have the inflexibility of this closed interface, and therefore you have to purchase the equipment from the same vendor. Now come to the fully virtualized RAN network. Now, in case of a fully virtualized RAN network, what happens is that the DU, which was nothing but an extrapolation of the BBU, is now in the cloud. It is almost like located in the centralized unit. The radio unit is stripped of all the function, the bare minimum, which is the radio unit, which is a base station. The base station is stripped of all the function except the radio unit. So the base station becomes thinner, much more thinner than conventional legacy network. So what happens is that the biggest advantage that you get now is, apart from the flexibility to purchase equipment from anybody who would like to, because all these interfaces are now become open, that power supply of the net, power consumption in the network reduces significantly because of this electronics being stripped off from the base station and taken to a centralized location where you can manage the power much more effectively. Because today, if you look at the consumption that the OPEX cost of the vendors, if you leave the license fee and the spectrum fee aside, almost 40 to 50% of the OPEX cost is power consumption, the running cost of the base station, and that exponentially increases because the power supply is not continuous. You have to rely on diesel generators, and there the cost of running a base station increases 4 times sometimes. Okay, so that is what in nutshell that open network is all about. You are getting an advantage of purchasing all these units from an open vendor, anybody who you like to, and they will connect through an open interface. That's all open network, which will give you efficiency. The network will become much more simpler. You are able to do off-the-shelf equipment. Your software is going to be easy, and more importantly, you are not dependent on all the features to be supported by the network, the RAN network. Sometimes what happens is that the handset providers will have many features which 3GPP supports, but those features cannot be supported because the network equipment vendor does not carry those signals transparently within their network. So that creates a problem, and therefore the handset providers actually are sometimes restricted from the point of view implementing forward-looking features, which now is possible because the open network will be able to carry 3GPP specs and the frame transparently without any kind of intervention. Right? So now you understood the concept of open RAN. Now what is in for Vodafone, and what are the flexibilities and the inflexibilities that the Vodafone is going to encounter? So let's understand that. Now you know that Vodafone has 5G network, right? So this is already I have explained to you. So what is the advantage of open network? We have already talked about. Now the basic problem, and I don't want to go through the article, let me just talk this through so that you understand. Vodafone has got 5G spectrum, right? So that 5G spectrum for Vodafone, we can look at my earlier spectrum app that I have prepared. So it will be very handy. Let's look at that app so that you understand where Vodafone is and how the other players are positioned from the point of view of their spectrum situation is concerned. So I will pull out the Vodafone's 5G network, right? So spectrum match. So you will see, let's look at 3500. So you see that Vodafone will have 5G deployed in 3500 megahertz band, because 3500 megahertz band is the band which is today 5G deployment is happening. Now you see that Vodafone already has so much amount of spectrum, 50 megahertz of spectrum. Now Vodafone does not have spectrum in any other band except for 26 gigahertz band. So this is the only 5G band Vodafone has, and rest of the spectrum Vodafone which has is 4G spectrum. So Vodafone now can start to deploy 5G open RAN in the 3.5 gigahertz band. Now you may ask a very simple question, then other people have also deployed 5G in 3.5. Why can't they deploy open RAN network in their same spectrum? The problem is that the open RAN and the conventional RAN do not interwork with each other. Let me explain what it means. Let's assume that in a particular circle, like Bharti has deployed conventional RAN in a particular circle. Let's take example of any circle, let's say Delhi. Okay, they have deployed. Now they have already deployed the network through and through, and the coverage has been carpet to carpet. Now let's say Bharti wants to try an open RAN network in Delhi, just like Vodafone Idea is trying to do. What will happen is they have to deploy an open RAN network in the same 3.5 gigahertz spectrum, and that network, that equipment will collide with the RF signals from a conventional RAN, which Bharti already has. So you can't deploy open RAN network without having a backward compatibility with your existing RAN network, which is not ensured today. There are no specification. The equipment that has been purchased does not have RF level compatibility. So they can't deploy it. Similarly, Reliance Jio cannot deploy it unless they have a new spectrum, completely pure and virgin spectrum which has not been touched. Fortunately for Vodafone, they are not deploying conventional 5G network in their 3.5 gigahertz band. They do not have any network, legacy network. So they can try open RAN network in the conventional 5G network. They don't have to worry about the legacy 4G network because those are in a different frequency band. See, 1800 megahertz is a different frequency band. So there is no problem. These are all Vodafone spectrum. So they don't have to worry. So Vodafone, if they go with open RAN from the very beginning, they don't have to worry about the legacy network. Whereas the existing the players like Bharti and Reliance Jio, they have to uproot their existing network, because otherwise they have to create silos, or they have to deploy Open RAN network in a geographically segmented area which do not have any interworking with their existing RAN network. It cannot be mixed in the same frequency band, by the way. Okay? That is the advantage of Vodafone Idea going forward. Now let's understand the disadvantage of Vodafone Idea. The disadvantage of Vodafone Idea would be that since the Open RAN from a theoretical point of view enables you to purchase equipment from different vendors, like all these adjuncts which I told you, you can purchase from different vendors. You are no longer dependent on a single vendor. But the issue is that who is going to take the responsibility of a full network integration? Today, what happens is that when you are buying network from conventional, legacy RAN providers, they are fully responsible for the network integration, for the network to work together end to end. You cannot basically they cannot pass the buck if something is not working. Whereas, let's say if you purchase a particular equipment from vendor A, another equipment DU from vendor B, RU from vendor C, and if DU and RU do not interwork with each other, who is going to be responsible? Who is going to test whether the interworking has happened or not? It is a stupendous amount of task to be performed. And that is why the Open RAN network has not scaled. People have not deployed Open RAN because of this particular limitation. There has to be an SI, a system integrator. And that system integrator has to ensure that each and every equipment is tested, properly tested. Even the handset makers have to test their equipment so that they can work with an Open RAN network. Because let's say if a handset maker, anybody, Qualcomm or MediaTek, is building a handset into the network, making a handset is not an easy task. What needs to happen is that the chip has to be tested against each and every network, vendor's network, for the chip to work seamlessly. And that testing work is a stupendous amount of work that is required to happen. So the testing interworkability of this equipment with each other is going to be a tremendous amount of work, right? Maybe, some SI can do it, and they have to figure out, and maybe the operators themselves become equipped enough to undertake this job. But under the current situation where most of the jobs are being offloaded and through third parties, you have to continuously depend on third party to do the integration. So friends, I think probably you have understood now what are the challenges Vodafone Idea will face, what are the advantages Vodafone Idea will face, what are the disadvantages the current vendors are going to face. See, if you look at this article actually talked about these challenges and what the government of India should do in order to enhance the possibility of the Open RAN deployment in India, because you need to first come out with standards so that to ensure backward compatibility. Look at this. Open RAN network are game changer in the radio network are the rollout. This can bring huge benefits from the point of view of efficiency and scalability. But this network will continue to remain elusive in India unless the government of India takes lead to drive its adoption. For that, it must amend the license condition to ensure vendors supply legacy equipment are contractually bound to integrate those equipment with Open RAN in future. So this has not happened yet. So if this has not happened, once the 5G has been deployed, unless you choose a different band for a new 5G to be deployed in a completely different, let's say 600 megahertz, you cannot really work cannot deploy Open RAN in your existing network unless you geographically segment those networks in a different area where there is no RF collision of RF signals colliding with the legacy RAN. That possibility has to be eliminated because there will be huge interference and things are not going to work. So friend, I think you probably have understood. I will pass on this link in the description. You can read this article, and if you have any other questions and queries, let me know, because this was a conceptual video. I really didn't want to get into whether Vodafone Idea, how much they will deploy, how much they will be able to scale. Those things I don't want to get into this video. But I think this serves the purpose, and I hope that you have understood, and I'll come back to you with the next video next time. Do let me know any other topic that you want me to cover. Thank you very much.